The knight realized he had fallen into a trap and was now surrounded. He needed to break through and come up with a new plan, but Lin wasn't going to give him that opportunity. Suddenly, several red shackles came his way and quickly bounded him. He recognized this was a curse skill, but he couldn't dodge in time and found his movements becoming very sluggish. Meanwhile, several skeletal warriors closed in. He frantically raised his shield to block them, but it shattered after just a few seconds. Before he could react, more skeletons joined in and quickly outnumbered him, and in mere seconds, he found himself now off the stage. He hadn't even used all his skills yet, and lamented that he had underestimated Lin's skeletons. He had hoped to target Lin right off the bat and end the fight quickly, but the strength of the skeletons had exceeded his expectations. With a sigh, he shook his head and saluted Lin, who was on the stage, not just because Lin was a 3-star lieutenant, but also because of just how powerful he was. The audience erupted with excitement. Watching a level 27 effortlessly defeat a level 37 made some of them believe they too could also step up to the challenge, and their anticipation quickly grew for the next round, all wanting to see just where exactly were Lin's limits. On the stage, Lin won the second round with ease and secured a brilliant intermediate skill scroll. Will he call it a day? Of course not. Our boy chose to continue the challenge. Next up on the stage was a level 42 archer professional clad in platinum tier equipment. Not only he was a seasoned archer who had undergone a second-class transfer. Just like Lin, he was also a 3-star lieutenant. Some of the audience began to doubt if Lin could win this time. The archer didn't wear just any platinum tier equipment, but the highest grade battlefield set. And considering how high-level professionals benefit from significantly boosted stats after the second-class transfer, and how their skills became stronger and were able to unlock even more powerful higher-level skills, winning this round wouldn't be easy for Lin in anyone's eyes. As for Lin, he smiled confidently, showing no sign of believing he would lose. Seeing the archer, he seemed to be more eager to check out just what the 4th and 5th rounds could bring to the table. At the start of the match, a volley of arrows shot up into the sky as the archer used his first skill, tracking arrow. The arrows seemed to be on aimbot, or perhaps had a mind of their own as they rained down on Lin from all directions. At the same time, Lin summoned 2 skeletal mages. As the arrows descended, the skeletal mages too had finished casting. Seeing the elemental attacks coming his way, the archer swiftly retreated, activating a skill to create 2 dummy clones of him as they dodged the attack in different directions. A deafening explosion rocked the entire stage, and the intense flame obscured what was happening. Most had thought Lin wouldn't stand a chance to withstand a level 42 high-level professional's attack. But as the smoke cleared, Lin stood unharmed while in his gleaming skeletal armor. Seeing this, they all wondered what kind of defensive skill could withstand a high-level professional's attack. This even caused the archer to pause for a moment in surprise, while exclaiming how powerful this defensive skill was. Still, he didn't stop his assault. His clones dashed around the stage, shooting arrows relentlessly as skeletal warriors chased them. The archer was too agile to be caught, and the skeletal warriors kept getting kited. Lin knew he needed to restrict the opponent's movements first. He prepared to use the same strategy again. A red glow formed on his hands, and several red shackles shot toward the archer. 2 of the clones were instantly struck, but the chains missed the real archer, who raised his bow high, and it gleamed as a beam of light as he shot skyward. This was one of his skills, Purifying Arrow. Upon impact, it shattered the shackles instantly. Lin was a bit surprised, not expecting the archer to have a cleanse-type skill too. The archer then launched another attack, a high-speed arrow with a purple glow aimed directly at Lin. However, to the archer's surprise, the silencing arrow couldn't penetrate Lin's skeletal armor, nor did it cancel out the skeletal armor. The spectator also notices this. Perhaps Lin's skeletal armor was more strong than they once thought. Not only it withstood numerous attacks unscathed, but what was even more impressive was that the skeletal armor was immune to control skills. So far, what Lin had demonstrated could only be described as flawless, making the necromancer profession seem nearly too perfect. However, back on the stage, both sides were locked in a stalemate, unable to break the deadlock. Lin watched as his skeletal warriors were kited, and the skeletal mage's skills kept missing. He considered summoning more skeletons, but they would just end up getting kited, and his only curse skill wouldn't work because the archer had a cleanse-type skill. So what should he do? Lin pondered for a few more seconds before summoning a ball of green flame in his hand. He was concerned about using it on the stage because it could inflict too much pain. After all, this was just a friendly tournament. He hesitated as he really didn't want to use it on a human professional, even if there's a protective array on the stage and divine-level healers off the stage to prevent real harm. But leaving the match in a deadlock wasn't an option either. With a sigh, he decided to use the Soul Flame, but kept its power to a minimum. The ball of fire flew toward the archer's brow, and the archer who was kiting the skeletal warriors suddenly let out a bone-chilling scream as he staggering and collapsing to the ground. Even his bow slipped from his grasp. Most in the audience didn't know what had happened, but someone explained that Lin had used a targeted skill, meaning the archer had no chance to dodge it. Meanwhile, Lin let out a sigh, knowing this was exactly what he didn't want to happen. Since this skill, even if he had controlled to inflict the least amount of damage, it was still simply too painful. Within just 1 second after the skill was cast, Lin looked at him and then apologized, and the archer, gasping for breath, looked at Lin still having a bit of terror in his eyes. Surprises come when least expected. Watching from the sidelines, Su Sheng broke out in a cold sweat, looking at Lin as if he were a monster. Just how many tricks did Lin have up his sleeves? He murmured to himself. Afterward, the archer was teleported off the stage, while a healing spell was applied onto him. His initial screams unnerved the spectators, who now looked at Lin with an edge of fear. With the third round complete, Lin claimed his reward and unhesitatingly chose to continue the challenge. In the fourth round, the audience held their breath as a sword and shield knight stepped onto the stage, wearing the same platinum battlefield set as the previous archer. Surprisingly, he was only level 45, just 3 levels higher than the level 42 archer in the previous round. Many began to question the supposed difficulty of this round. Why was it rumored to be extremely challenging? If it was just one level 45 professional, why had no one ever cleared it? The answer came in the next moment. To everyone's astonishment, several other professionals appeared behind the knight. They were all level 45, a fully formed 5-man squad, with an archer, a mage, an assassin, and a support. They too had worn the same platinum battlefield set. People finally realized the real reason why no one had ever passed the fourth round. The challengers had to face a well-coordinated 5-person squad who were much higher level. Lin, only level 27, perhaps only a miracle could bring him a victory, as most lamented. Meanwhile, as the team captain, the knight looked at Lin with high praises, while exuding a powerful aura that made Lin realize this knight captain was a 9-star lieutenant who must have fought on the Yuan battlefield for years. Not only that, his teammates were also at least 5-star lieutenants. It was clear that they were not to be underestimated. Lin's gaze grew more serious, but was tinged with fighting spirit. The other professionals also looked at Lin with high praise. The knight captain spoke first, commending Lin for making it this far and saying he should be proud of himself. Lin thanked the captain, however. He added that he still intended to win today. At the start of the match, Lin slowly raised his hand, with the sound of "Arise, my soldiers," and in an instant, a chilling wind howled through the arena, engulfing everything. Spectators leaped to their feet, many shielding their eyes from the gust, while others gaped in disbelief. "What? How can there be so many?" someone stammered. The center of the stage was now filled with a massive army of skeletons, like a legion summoned from the underworld itself. Even the battle-hardened knight captain gulped hard, beads of cold sweat forming on his forehead. In the stands behind, Su Sheng and Tang finally realized that Lin had been hiding his true power all along. Not only that, he still had that massive creature he had summoned before. Is he still holding back? They both wondered. At Lin's command, the skeletal warriors charged, and the skeletal mages began casting spells. Despite their shock, the squad didn't panic, having faced abyssal demons and outnumbered foes countless times before. They swiftly prepared for battle, with the support of rapidly applying buffs to the team, while everyone else raised their weapons. A group protective barrier was quickly set up, as it briefly blocked the skeleton's attacks before the mage and archer began to cast their spells. The skeletal mages struck first, unleashing a barrage of elemental attacks that swept across the protective barrier. The knight captain bore the brunt of hundreds of skeletons' attacks and was quickly reaching his limit, and commanded his team to attack. The damage dealers finally finished casting their spells. The mage's meteor fell, and the archer's arrow storm rained down upon the skeletons, the wide AoE skills wounding many skeletal warriors. However, the skeletal mages, with weaker defenses, were not able to withstand it, and one was killed on the spot as many others were injured. But these attacks weren't enough to turn the tide. However, the explosions raised a cloud of dust, obscuring Lin's line of sight. At that moment, a shadow appeared behind Lin. Unbeknownst to him, an assassin pulled out his dagger, aiming straight at his neck. But in the next second, Lin's skeletal armor lit up, blocking the attack. The assassin was momentarily stunned by his failed strike. He tried to retreat back into stealth, but two skeletal warriors materialized beside him, holding him firmly in place. He sensed danger but was too late, as several bolts of lightning descended from the sky, striking him directly. He activated another skill and disappeared, but Lin's palm flashed with soul flame as he barely glazed the assassin before he ran away, and soon, a scream echoed through the arena. The assassin reappeared back to his squad, and the support hurriedly began healing him, as the captain anxiously asked how he was doing. Covered in sweat and trembling uncontrollably, the assassin could barely withstand the searing pain that seemed to pierce his soul. In the next moment, Lin unleashed a slowing curse, and several red shackles flew toward the squad. But before they could reach their targets, the team's support used a mass purification skill, breaking the curse. Lin sighed, realizing that his curses would inevitably be countered with high-level support, but he tried his luck. However, it didn't really matter since the squad wasn't just facing Lin. They were up against a legion of skeletons. Before long, their group's protective barrier shattered, and although the Knight Captain stood at the forefront, his hands went numb after withstood minutes of continuous attack. As the skeletons closed in to form another encirclement, the team's mage cast a fire ring, scattering the skeletal warriors away. Immediately after, the archer fired an arrow with a chain symbol into the cluster of airborne skeletons, immobilizing many of them. However, he tells his squad that it won't last long. With the skeletal warriors momentarily removed from the stage's center, the squad had created a passageway, knowing it was their best opportunity to regroup and charge straight at Lin. The audience watched as Lin's skeletal army formation faltered, many now on their feet. The squad knew how relentless the skeletons were, but if they could take out the summoner himself, the rest would vanish. The Knight Captain led the way with his sword and shield, his teammates close behind. Lin admired their skill. No wonder they were from the Empire's military. It was his first time fighting professionals with such exhilaration. He became more excited as the fight went on. He then let out a smile, while telling the squad that he would win regardless. What followed was a flicker of green flame that ignited within his palm.